Hi, and welcome to the second session of our Per Usher ministry training. I'm Danny Berry, the lead pastor, and I'm so excited that you're wanting to be involved in this ministry. I want to just thank you for wanting to be a part of a ministry where you get to pray with people and usher them into God's presence. Hopefully you've had a chance to check out chapters 6, 7, and 8 of the book by Terry Teagle called Praying Grace. And it's such a cool workbook where it gives you a lot of tips and insights on do's and what not to do. It's just such a cool resource. But here in the second session, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of maybe walk through a couple of scenarios, okay? If someone were to come forward on a Sunday morning. You know, it could be kind of, intimidating, right? When someone comes forward because we're not really sure what to expect. And believe me, there could be about any kind of thing. Like I mentioned in our last session, it could be something as simple as praying for someone who's got the cold, all the way up to somebody who's dealing with addictions or marriage problems or maybe even an ending marriage. It could be very widely spread what the topic could be about. So it could be a little intimidating. But the first thing and the most important thing that you need to do is that when someone comes up, the first thing you want to do is get to know who they are. Just very briefly. You may know them already, but if not, ask them their name. And then just simply do what is really just a quick interview. Say, hi, and whatever their name is, and I'm really glad you came forward, and what is it that I can pray for you about today? And then just hear them out. Now, some people will be maybe very open about their feelings. They'll share a lot about what they want prayed for. Other people may only just say simply, just marriage problems, or my friend, or something like that. And that's okay, because we know that we're praying to a God who knows their situation. And it's such a big step for them to come forward and to pray. And so don't let their breadth or narrowness of information stop you from praying for them, because there's enough there to pray with them. Now, let's just assume, though, that one person who comes up, they come forward because they want to be a part of the church family. You know, if it's possible, I think what you need to do is you would just pass them off to me or to whoever other pastor that may be there that morning and let the pastor know that they're interested in becoming a part of the church family. And so then we would probably set up some kind of a meeting with them and talk through the process of becoming a part of our family. And so that's what you would do if they were coming forward to become a part of the family. Now, let's say you have another person who comes forward with what is typically the reason a person would come forward, and that is for just simple prayer. And again, what you do is you just kind of give them a quick interview. You ask their name, ask them what they need prayer for, and in this case, let's just assume that we have someone who comes forward and says that they need prayer because they've got this boss that's like really hard to work for. So while listening to them talk about this, you know, you want to be attentive. You want to look them in the eye. You want them to know that you care. You want to make sure that you're on the same page with them. Maybe you could say something sort of like this. Maybe you could say, okay, so what I hear you saying is that you feel this. In other words, it's empathize with them. Get to know the situation so that you could pray more effectively. And while trying to listen, you need to try to understand the basis of them coming forward. And it might even mean that you might need to weed out some of the more secondary details that aren't so important, and just focus on the main detail at hand. And then as much as you can, empathize with them, identify with them. You know, maybe you've gone through something similar in your own life, and just very briefly, don't spend more than 5 seconds, just share, I've had a hard boss to work for too, but by me praying, it's helped me a lot. You know, just something like that, so you could show that connection and empathize with them. And then once you think you got a good understanding of what the issue is, then you just simply say, hey, is it okay if I pray with you? Is it all right if I pray with you? And if they're coming forward, chances are they're going to say yes, right? And so then you would pray. And so it's probably best to do that maybe up front here at our prayer rails. But maybe you're looking for a more private spot. Maybe you need to go downstairs to our prayer room. Maybe you just go off to the side in the sanctuary here or the worship center where it's not quite as busy and congested with people, and you pray with them. Now, I do want to give one caution in this. What we're going to try to do when we schedule is we'll always try to have a male and a female at the front, and of course we need to be careful with the opposite gender. So if a woman comes forward and you're a guy and they want to pray about something, praying in a public setting is probably okay? But if they want to talk about something more serious in a more private setting, I would suggest that either I wouldn't suggest you hand them off to a female and just say, okay, good luck. You don't want to do that. But you would have another female prayer usher, or maybe your spouse or someone like that, who would go with you downstairs and just talk about it together in the prayer room in a more private setting. But just be very, very cautious about that. Now, when you actually pray, you might be thinking, okay, how am I supposed to pray? What can I do? You know, there's an acronym, and Terry Tickle in his book talks about it. There's an acronym that's called the GRACE acronym, and you can learn more about that. But the one that I prefer to use, because I think it's a little simpler and easier to remember, is what our church, we've used it in some of our prayer services. It's called the ACTS acronym, and it's ACTS. And the A stands for adoration. So when you pray with them, okay, we're talking about this woman who has a boss that's hard to work for, right? Okay, when you pray with them, you give praise to God first. You know, it's so easy to want to just jump right into the problem. No, give praise to God, because we want to focus this on God. We want to bring them into God's presence. And so focus on the goodness and the love and the mercy and the grace of God. And then the C in the ACTS acronym is confession. That's when we come and we say, God, we're sinners. We've made mistakes. We've done bad things. God, we need your grace. We need your mercy. We need your help. And then you get into thanksgiving. That's the T. You give thanks to God for all of these things, His mercy, His grace. You just, again, it's kind of like a worship service in prayer, okay? And then finally, you get to the S, and that's supplication. And it's in that moment, it's in that supplication that you lift up the actual need that has been presented in this conversation. So in this case, working under a really hard boss. And so maybe you would just pray and say, Father, please help whoever it is. Please help them, Father, to be able to show mercy and grace to their boss, to be patient, God, to show the love of Jesus, but God, also that they would feel confident, that they would feel strengthened, even God, when they're disrespected or hurt, God, that they would remember that truly who they're working for is not their boss, but it's for you. Those are the kinds of things you would want to maybe pray for with them. And after the inquiry, after you're done talking with them and praying with them, just remind them that they are loved and that there are people who would be more than glad to talk to them more about it if they would like to. Encourage them, lift them up, build them up, before they walk away. Don't just pray with them and say, okay, well, hopefully that fixes things. Good luck. No, God, He's going to act. We know that. But what He's wondering is, what are you going to do? What part can you play in this? Now, after the inquiry, you might realize that maybe you missed something that was going on, or that more needs to be done following the service or during the week with a pastor or counselor. And it's in that opportunity, it's in that moment where then you can then pass along them to a pastor or counselor to be able to talk about what's going on in their life. Now, don't forget that there is a card that is up here at the prayer rail that you would have all of them fill out. And simply, it's just a name and then the prayer request. And then on the very bottom, it talks a little bit about a follow-up. So whether it be a phone call or perhaps a home visit. So don't forget to fill that out. You could just put it in the offering plate or give it to a staff member, and we'll take care of it during the week. But as you go through all of this, it's important to remember that you are only an usher. You're only leading people to God. The real part of the work that's happening is between them and God. Don't forget that. And so whenever you do end the encounter with them, when you pray with them, you need to make sure that you bless them. And in Praying Grace, in the book that I've been talking about by Terry Tickle, he shares more about the do's and don'ts of prayer ushering, as well as some other tips. So make sure you check it out. Now, before you make it to the very last session of this training, I want to encourage you to read chapters 10 through 14 of Praying Grace and work through it. You're going to find it very helpful in how you provide for this essential ministry. So again, I want to thank you for being a part of this training as we wrap up this second session, and I look forward to seeing you again in our final session of video training as we continue to learn how we can be prayer ushers in this so important ministry of extending grace through prayer. Again, thank you.